This is the midway point update, 2025. And another thing that kind of coincides with all this for me is I lost my dad this year, and he was really sick, and I ended up kind of being the main person that tried to help him a lot. And he was one of the things I explained and told him, because there's certain treatments he just absolutely would not do. He just wouldn't do it. And he had been very sick for a long time anyway. And to him, some things were torture, and he just didn't want to go through it. And he was very strong about it. So I said, well, we can try to give you the best comfort measures. And some of the conversations I had with him about having comfort measures at the end. And I said, one of the things I had explained to him that I felt led to share with him, I said, I bet you are our Methuselah. I said, I bet you when you go, we're going to see a change in the world. Because the story with Methuselah in the Bible was his name supposedly meant when he dies, it will come. And he was the longest living person on the earth. And if you do the math, it's not spelled directly in the Bible, but when you do the math, I think it's in Genesis. Methuselah passed the year of the flood. And so I told Daddy, you're our Methuselah. And even whenever I saw him laying there, when I said goodbye, I said, that's our little Methuselah. Because now a lot of stuff is going to change. And sure enough, that seems like that's how it's been. It coincided with Trump getting elected, and he wanted to see that. He got to see that before he left. But I believe some of the escalations they look like they have to do with Trump, but not really. It's the time in the world. The AI has been released and is starting to be built more than ever. Wars have escalated. Supposedly the UFO disclosures and sightings, all that is just kind of escalated. There's so much to where whenever I'm, kind of texting along with people of like, this is that time, this is like, we've entered something different now, and this is an increase. I say Daddy was our Methuselah. That's what happened there. And that's kind of like these signs are in our family, and the way he left, and we had another family member come in the same day he passed, like the Lord saying that his hand was on the timing of everything. I also knew during the time I was taking care of him that I had an understanding from God that, because I had in all of my preparing for things that were coming, I just kind of had this idea that I was probably even going to go through the tribulation with my dad, trying to help him because he was so sick. So I knew that I wasn't going to be like some heroic, apocalyptic, doomsday prepper in the woods by myself or nothing crazy. I'm like, I'm going to be with him wherever he is. So I kind of felt like God, the way he guided me with that was he was telling me that I wasn't going to have to be in a world situation where he would have to decide to take the mark or not, if that makes sense. It was never going to be to where he was going to have to refuse the mark, and we were all going to be like trying to help him through that. So I also knew that he was probably going to go to be with the Lord before certain things came in the world. And I feel like that's just a lot of the timing of this season, is that's happened too. So that's just another theme that I'll probably share throughout this, of how God's guidance with me and him, because whenever it was like getting so bad, so hard toward the end, I had this flash of understanding of him sitting in his little chair in 3 years. And it was such a flash. It wasn't something like you could say, thus saith the Lord. It was more like an understanding, and the overall message of it was to take care of him. To me, that was the main understanding of that message, was take care of him. He's sick. And I think the Lord also gave me the peace of that 3 year idea of like, because some aspects of it were extremely difficult and challenging. Like you guys already know how caregiving can be. You've probably heard, if not gone through it. I think that was the Lord kind of comforting me that there's limits on the difficulty because of the shape he was in and all of it. Like, in other words, this is not going to go on for 10, 15 years. But it didn't mean he's going to live for 3 more years, and it didn't. But that 3 years also gave me a clue that if he is like a Methuselah, that this 3 year time span would be like the max. Like if he would have accepted all of his treatments and not refused them, Because some of those things I think are kind of flexible, like with Hezekiah when he asked God for more time. So the way things could have gone was he would have passed the end of 2026, and I'm not making light of it at all. I'm just sharing with you guys how God has worked with me in my life before of guidance and showing me timing of things, of trying to take care of important things. So that had me already thinking 2027 is probably going to be um, when things get real weird. That's just an idea moving forward in this conversation of kind of things that have guided me lately. I've said a few times on some of my other videos that I follow the Paul Begley YouTube channel. Um, and I'm checking my times. I don't really pay attention to a lot of their webinars because I have been very busy. I did lose my dad very recently. But the last webinar I did was the one they did on AI, the Stargates and all that, and I'm going to share some notes from it. I had just done the AI webinar, the only one I had seen in a long time. I went ahead and bought it while I was taking care of Dad because I thought, man, this is super important. This is a halfway point deal, and it was. I'm going to be sharing that with y'all because that has some kind of clues in there of like what time we're in and what we can expect that I think the Christian should know in this time. So I do believe that we are most likely we're either halfway through a cycle of the markets or we are halfway ish because we don't really know how long each horse would last per se. We're halfway through what has traditionally been these cycles of the horses, and the black horse is here. We're seeing the trade elements step in. We're seeing the wars that were set up and probably the red horse of the last decade are now coming into their fruition terribly. There's a lot of warnings in this. It's a lot of warnings. And so the red and the white horses are still riding. Um, I have other videos on my channel about these horses. I'll get into some of them though on this series. So if we're halfway through the markets, I mean, we've seen, I have been like very sick and fighting hard, plus taking care of my dad a lot since 2020. But what I have witnessed is the virus, that was predictable. And then the first startup of the Russian Ukraine conflict, I was like, right on schedule. I hate it. It's talking very lightly of a horrible thing. Right on schedule. October the 7th, right on schedule. And then the constant threat with China, Taiwan, and then the UFO exposures, and then the all the other things. And then you had India, Pakistan lately. So everything that's happened is like people are going to excuse as World War III escalating, maybe, but it is right on schedule, or maybe a post-COVID fallout. It's all right on schedule to me. I'm like, yeah, that's what this is moving toward, especially with the AI push behind it, which may lead to AI wars. In the black horse, you're going to have the scales with the rationing. And maybe even more so than a food shortage, what that's going to look like is the social credit score worldwide. And then if we start losing our jobs more, that's going to look like universal incomes with the score system. So you can't talk. And it's already, by the way, super dangerous to talk online more than ever for lots of reasons. And like the P. Diddy trial, go listen to that and you'll find out some of the reasons why it's dangerous for anyone to do much of anything these days. The world is different since the virus in a lot of ways. So, and I have a few more books I'm working on too. Okay, the next book I'm working on, you can pretty much get the gist of the book if you go to my YouTube channel, End Time Warriors Project. I have a series, and this may not be your thing. If it's not, don't worry about it. A series called 121 Identifiers of the Narcissist. It's a warning. It is a good warning for if you're falling for these traps and these mind games that people do. Because guys, this isn't just romantic relationships. This is idolatry, idolatrousness, cults, cult system. There's a lot of situations in jobs, in the workplace, in spiritual environments, in personalities that act like cults. And they're all acting like they all have these same kind of idolatry, narcissistic things going on with them. So that's a pretty cool kind of like coaching and teaching of things you can identify and like, oh yeah, now that you said that, that is what they're doing. And it kind of helps you realize they're not doing what you're doing. You think they are, but that's not quite what that is. And then some understandings from Proverbs of many are her guests in hell. Most people, y'all, most people fall for the things. Most people fall for the idolatry. Most people fall for the lies. Most people fall for the traps. Most people fall for the things because many are her guests in hell. So there's a lot of people falling for these things because another verse is they look at the beautiful wine in the glass, which could be a lot of different things in the world that are pleasure and prideful. They look at the beautiful wine in the glass and not the snake that bites at the end. Now, we're all going to get caught up with stuff here and there, little things, but if we're not fighting it and studying it and asking God for help and looking around for options and trying to move on, and at least aware, you know, that's the difference, is coming out and saying, yeah, no. So the beautiful wine in the glass versus the serpent that bites in the end. Many are her guests in hell. Just tips like that. Like, that's a lot of folks. You gonna fall for some stuff because most everybody's gonna fall. Like, you have to stay with the Lord. You have to care. You have to say, that's the thing it says, to pick up your cross and follow Him. Is you have to find a way with the Lord that you follow the truth first, and you follow the truth like you're dedicated to you. The Bible talks about having a love for the truth and working with the Lord to have these things with our life, and finding the other ones that do and working with them too, loving the truth and deciding. You can tell the difference in someone that decided that the truth mattered, the truth and the light mattered, and it was kind of high on their importance scale. I don't know at what age people make these decisions. Maybe it's different ages for different people, but you guys know what I'm saying. The difference between some people very early, they put some things high on their scale of life of what they must have. I've got to have this. I'm going to have this. It don't matter. Well, one of the things we need to develop is I'm going to still try to stick with the truth. Because if I don't have that, I have no foundation. Where's that on your importance scale of the love of the truth? So anyway, so I have some teachings like that, and that book I plan on calling it "Run for Your Life." This is so funny. I was falling for a stupid trap before, and there was this fella that had tried to kind of say hi to me, and I was like, "This something wrong here," because it's a red flag here and there, big old red banners flying around. So I was looking at his Facebook, and it was horrible. He had this woman with no clothes playing the piano, and to make a rage statement, and that was my first okay. Even people was coming on there saying, "I thought you was the pastor. What you doing posting this?" And so anyway, so I told my sister, I was like, "Oh my goodness, look what he did now. This is like I'm out. I'm completely not. I'm not gonna be going to none of his meetings or nothing. This is real crazy." And so she was kind of like, "Well, are you sure he isn't just like having a real man moment and being super manly?" And so I pointed out a few little things like, yeah, he did it on purpose. It was hatefulness, and when she realized that he meant to do it and he did it on purpose, she was like, we were on Messenger, and she got on all caps, and she put the little message on my Messenger. It said, "Run for your life." So I thought, yeah, that would be an excellent name for my next book. Run for your life. And I think I'm going to all caps it and put a period after every word. And then the subtitle can be like 121 identifiers of cults and abusers and all that. And I think it's probably just going to be a simple little booklet. Like I say, if you go watch the series if you even want to, on YouTube, just in case you're insanely curious, you don't even have to get the book if it ever makes it out. That's the one I'm working on. But that's a good coaching series. I like doing them because I like going back and finding them and practicing it because it helps me so much. And historically, I don't think there's even time for this anymore. But what I did on my old channel was I got almost 10,000 subs, and they were all on there like little groups, kind of like a Facebook group. They were all in there like, thank you, and this is helping me, and we would share together, and that's all it's about. And I don't hardly, I've never put my real name out there, but it's not about my name, and me out there always doing things. It's what I love to do. I love to do this work. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. It's that simple. But the run for your life theme, I'm feeling that. I am feeling the run for your life. I'm feeling the season of that. Like, people are being exposed. We're going on to a next cycle, and it's like time to focus and dedicate and just go. Not only run away from evil, but run into the right thing. So I love it. But that's kind of what I'm working on. And if I do another book after that, if there was even time or reason without insane danger, the one I would like to do after that would be the story of being attacked. And that would be even shorter of a book. It would be a short book because that's teaching people. It's also helping to connect into the community of people that are getting assaulted in church by leadership and having the confusion of, where does this put me with God? Because one of the statistics is that there are a lot of atheists. There are a lot of people who are being atheists and going atheistic because things happen to them in church, and it's so much more of it. And of course, and it's like now, everybody I run into, I go to test drive a car, and the salesman is telling me something that happened to him in church that I wasn't even talking about. He was like trying to do the salesman thing of get personal with me. And his new girlfriend is trying to get him to go to church, and he's like, the last time I went to church, a preacher did this, and that it's so common because that's an easy way to get people, is to offend them in that area. So that's a huge ministry point of the testimony of a whole preacher working miracles in the church, put witchcraft on me and other people, and hates people and goes around hating on people. Because one of the first abuse stories I ran into when I started looking into it online, when I was first hit by in a church like around 2011, was a woman whose husband was just crying tears with God in church and doing all these miracles, and he was beating her at home, see. And she had to get away, and it was a miracle she got away, and all this. So, and hearing other people's stories can be so validating and confirming of, yeah, it's not just, I'm not, the things I'm wondering about are now understandable. Like, yeah, I hate that it happened to other people too, but so that would be another. I think I would name that book Ultimate Courage in the Face of Ultimate Cowardice. Because once, once, once you know the details, and it's time for me, I should have the liberty to say the exact truth of what happened to me, if nothing else, for the sake of the community of people that are getting harmed the same way. I should be able to go out into the world and form a community. They're already out there. We've got Berean Holiness, there's Honest Messy Life, and Be Emboldened, and then there's Faith Night. I forget the name of some of them, but there's several groups out there already that are doing it, that are saying, here's what a cult is. There's all people in a lot of different spiritual situations these days that are getting hurt for different reasons. And I'm not naming a denomination. I'm not doing it. I'm just saying you can have people up in church working miracles that are doing witchcraft. And I'm backed up by Matthew 7:15 through 23. That is the very first verses God highlighted to me and gave me because I'm supposed to give it to other people. They are ravening wolves. You'll know them by their fruits. They are doing miracles. And the Lord says, I never knew you. He says, depart from me, I never knew you. It's the pattern. That is the pattern. They're like, we did the most. We did the most. If you notice what they told the Lord, they didn't say, it broke my heart because of the pain in the world, and so I tried to feed folks. They didn't say that. They didn't say it broke my heart, so I made sure it wasn't about my name. And I went and helped people. They never said that. They said, I had signs and wonders and miracles, because that's what it was always about. It's a warning, y'all. Anyway, moving on. That's the books I would like to do. Ultimate Courage in the Face of Ultimate Cowardice, because that's what happened. But by then, I mean, I don't know, because this is another thing. I'm massively breaking through more than ever. I feel things breaking more than ever. There's two things with that. One thing is I think we're in a season, just like it coming out with Diddy and everything, of breaking out and through. Halfway point. We've gotten past the virus. There's all that. This just lets you know how big the world is. There's a lot of people out there doing this kind of mess constantly. And if we stay isolated, we don't share what's happening, we don't share what God's saying, then people get trapped inside their own little pocket, and they think they have the wrong understanding until they hear more information. That's why I'm so much about the information and why I got hit so hard. One thing that's known about the abuse recovery community is, quote, the information. The information is a huge tool. It's kind of like when the Lord said, you will know the truth and the truth will make you free. Having truthful, factual information is so liberating. The enemy tries to keep us from having that all the time. So anyway, not to be ugly. Like I say, I'm not even going to name names. I don't have a reason to name names because God knows who they are. But the details is not to be wasted. After I've been through what I went through, the details of it is not to be wasted. I have a right to do a whole bunch of things since I was attacked this hard. I have a right to do a whole lot of things about it. But one of the minimal, just bare bones, basic things that I have every right to do is go find the people that were attacked like me and form community with them and help the ones that are being attacked now and say, yeah, this is what happened. This happens. It's a meme. It's the meme of our time. I mean, welcome to the club. We get assaulted and called names and in church by the church leaders. That's where we're at. That's what it is. And they're always the ones, and the Lord got the most angry with them. They're always the ones that are in the church. You know, they're the ones in the church doing the most that hurt you the worst. So whatever. And so there's some reasons I had said earlier that I want to share that 2027 may be the apex, if you will, of this decade. We had two other cycles in the 7 year pattern. We had in our two other cycles, I think I have it on a note over here. I made details of 10 year cycles that might be horsemen. And before I was even thinking about this decade, before I was thinking about black horses, before I was thinking about viruses, before I was thinking about markets, before I was thinking about what this decade would look like in detail and even thinking about the 7 year because I was just hit so hard at first, I had already made some notes about the other horsemen and details of details that I had seen about them. And one of the things I had noticed is on the first two cycles that we have, I had specifically put it looks like we have a 7 year marker on both ones. So that's just one of the common sense reasons why I'm wondering about 2027. One thing that I think we can recognize the seals of Revelation, even if we're not in them, like if they come in the future, this is how I think they will be different. Like, like for example, Red Horse is known to be war. Okay. So people are like, what about terrible wars that happened in the past that are worse than anything we've seen in our life, like World War One? Why can't that be a red horse? And the difference to me would be these horsemen, these four, are the ones that we're going to see toward the very end of days, to the point that some people think that they only happen in the 7 year tribulation. I don't. I don't see a verse that matches that. But they're the ones that you're going to see toward the very end. Probably not 500 or 200 or 100 years from the end, but at the very end, because it looks like the four horses work together, one directly after the other. 1, 2, 3, 4. White, red, black, green. They work together to bring in the Antichrist. And I know that there's theories that they can work over hundreds and thousands of years. There's that, and maybe there's a shadow of that somewhere in there, but um, they're going to work together. They specifically prepare the world for the Antichrist rule because of emergencies. because when you get to your fifth seal, not your fifth, yeah, your fifth seal, not that's not a horse anymore. You got four horses and you have the fifth seal. The only way the fifth seal is described in the verse is it's talking about martyrs are crying out, "How long, O Lord, till you avenge us?" That's why things are getting so bad. It's because we're getting into the times where we're being mistreated so badly that we're saying, "Lord, how long till you avenge us?" Because this is just evil beyond ridiculous. Nobody can. This is even after death, guys. Even after you leave the world. I guess you could say your blood is crying out from the earth. So these four horsemen will specifically prepare the world for the fifth seal, martyrdoms, which is probably the Antichrist rule, which is the tribulation. They're gonna prepare the world for Revelation 13, the Antichrist rule, specifically launch the very last days. I believe we have well entered the beginning of sorrows. And they will match the end time events in Luke, Mark, and Matthew. And they're going to fall obviously close together in a pattern. Like I said, it's not like you're going to see, well, here's the black horse, but the white horse is not here yet. And it was kind of here the other day, but it'll probably come back stronger a little later. It's not like that. You will have, there's certain aspects of each horse that is so unique, independent, and different that you can tell when it arrives. Not only does it have its own identifiers, but it comes. Like the red horse, when it comes, it's like it will come after a very obvious white horse. And then the black horse will come after, not during, not before, but after a super obvious white and red horse. It'll be one after the other. So the 7 year marker that I saw, like I said, I wrote down these 7 year markers before. Maybe they're just invented. I'll give it that. But I wrote these down before I was even thinking about this decade. The 7 year marker that I noticed for 2000 to 2001, first seal white horse, most possibly opened on 9/11 in New York, was a massive awakening. By 2008, we had an economic crisis that they're still talking about today. And this was the beginning of some of the collapses toward the beast system. There's certain things that could not have been done toward Antichrist had we not had 9/11 and all the excuses behind it and the economic collapse. You had VHO elected, economic collapse, and by then you were starting to have a real awakening and response of the people. So at the 7 years, there was some real stuff happening on the white horse. And then at the red horse, which was 2010 to 2011, I believe opened with the attack on Libya. I think that was our big sign. And ISIS was released. By the way, since then, the so-called Arab Spring was not just getting ready for the wars of today, not just removing old leaders that were peaceful and putting super radical cannibals in to destroy the peace taken from the earth, is what it says on the red horse. Um, it wasn't just there. It was to put this madness anywhere in the world that it could. And part of the reason I think it's interesting, I noticed, and I was feeling it with Libya. That's when my little eyes peaked and I said, something different is happening here. And I made this little documentary about it. It was like a real short documentary, and I put the song to it. Did not realize this one till years later, and it might just be a silly thing. But I, there's this old song by Seal, and I'm not into worldly music, but I'm into spiritual psalms and songs sometimes, some rarely. Seal had this song, you guys know it, Crazy. You're never going to survive unless we get a little crazy. And this was the song, the perfect song. So I had that song and I made this little thing about what was going on with Libya was coming here next. I realized later, you know who wrote that song or who sang it? Seal. I'll let you think about that. Just saying, just saying.
Those around them criticize and sleep.
Anyway, peace taken from the earth and poverty, homelessness, narcissism, human trafficking, refugees. That's when all that started. All this mess that we're pretending like we're back to normal, it ain't been back to normal since this. This is when it's got started getting super, super, super messed up. So, Tripoli massacre, Fukushima, um, a lot of stuff. So the 7 year markers on that one is what started showing us look up to the heavens for the proper orientation to where you are. With the powers of heaven shall be shaken. So the 7 year marker there was our heavenly signs. We had the series of blood moons. We had the Revelation 12 sign, the eclipses, and the next big end time events will originate from the powers. For the powers of heaven shall be shaken. Luke chapter 21. We know we're going to look toward the weather and the food, and also a certain person was getting elected. Also, there was a huge victory there. So that's whenever a lot of people they were like, oh, we're getting raptured on the Revelation 12 sign, and I'm like, no, it's kind of like the Pope passing on Easter. It's a sign. It doesn't mean that we're getting raptured right now, and it doesn't mean that something's going to happen on that exact day, as much as it's a sign of like a time marker. It's another road sign that keeps pointing and pointing. These road signs keep pointing. To me, the Pope passing on Easter, one of the signs there is we're halfway there this time on the black horse. But that's the 7 year markers here was like the Revelation 12 sign, and on top of all that, there was the most massive, horrific hurricane season, and it was all powers of heaven on that 7 year marker. And sure enough, the black horse has to do with what happens to our food behind this, which I think a lot of that's being hidden. So I'm curious and careful about what may happen on 2027. That's one of the reasons. Another thing I've shared in my other videos is I feel like when I first was attacked like this, it was going away. Once I started, like, at first, the man who hit me just started really attacking me in the spirit since he realized he could. He had broke through. So he was just ripping me apart and tearing me to pieces and all kind of horrible things. And but he was trying to, he's with Satan. Make no mistake, guys. Be careful. Be careful of this wicked person and people like him everywhere. So, but whenever it was getting better and better, because I had started fasting and everything, I was like, Lord, like, when is this going to really break? And so every time I would have my Bible playing, which was constantly, every time it would come on to something about 3.5 years, times, and half times that was pointing to 3.5 years, it would just be highlighted to me, like Elijah and his 3.5 years signs and things. So I said, well, maybe something at 3.5 years. I think the Lord's just trying to encourage me here. And so there's different ways you can spell out the 3.5 years. And one of them was 1260 days. On 1260 days, I didn't see like a major earthquake or anything crazy. So I was like, let me see what the fool's doing, because um, I had blocked him and stuff everywhere, obviously, for years. So I didn't unblock him, but I just did like a search, and there were people that were complaining. He was that week, that night, was over at a church that harms children and had been on the news for harming children. He was over there talking about how wonderful they were and how great it all was. And by the way, he wears a wig, y'all. I'm not against men wearing hair pieces, but he was trying to put curses on me for wearing pants and little nitpicky rule things. And he's over there covering his head in church as a man while he prayed. Just saying. Just saying. So we're going to get nitpicky with rules, are we? Okay. So he's over there at the California church wearing a wig and doting on how wonderful they were to abuse children. So whatever. That's my bad. That's what he was doing at 1260 days. But then that and some other stuff happened where people was like, I'm just going to kind of get away from him and get away from the whole situation, because there were some people that were trying to, like, even confront me at a restaurant. Just rude. People are so rude. Whenever you're a woman being attacked by a man, they are so rude. Trying to confront me like I'm Jezebel, talking against the man of God. But these same people always had this pattern of not thinking or whatever, but they had to get away from him after this mess because yeah, please. Like, please realize that there's more going on than you realize. And I'm not going to talk, I'm not going to be like the broken record. This is kind of like my coming out. What I'm going to do is more like find the groups that need to be helped and stay with them. I probably won't even do it that much. There just comes a time where these things need to be said. They need to be said. And it does save lives. Like, I shouldn't have made it through this, y'all. This is written in heaven. This is written on the books. Hurting someone this badly for pleasure and pride and ego and hatred, and trying to carefully dismantle and destroy every part of their life and leave them with nothing but people disrespecting them for all of their hard work and trying to follow the Lord is a special evil. That is a very, very special evil to do to an innocent person. So enough on that. So since 3.5 years actually meant something, part of what I'm wondering now is, does 7 years mean something too? Like, what's this mean? I've wondered from the beginning. Is one of the things that this is showing is the Antichrist assaulting the church, because he's sitting in the church pretending to be God, sitting in the temple of God showing himself as God, and that he's God and he has the rights to do whatever. Very wicked, very abomination of desolation levels of wickedness. And so could this be like echoing a 7 year cycle of tribulation of the saints, the patience and the faith of the saints? And he who kills with the sword will be killed with the sword. He who leads captive will be led captive. So, very important reminders. And also, the attack often felt like a warning, because one of the things is, I don't believe something this horrible would happen to someone that has had certain signs like walking in the Spirit when gay marriage passed for America, walking in the Spirit for days, and some other things like that have happened with me, where I was wondering if this was showing that North America is the one going under the pale horse. If not, it's just really showing people that bad is coming on this earth. Like, the things of this world, our body, our health, our strength, our ability, our reputation, our names, our status, our income, and it's going to be death and worse than death. And I just have to say that. That's just how it is. Get to brace yourself. Like, it's okay to be worried about it, as far as we're not going to make it through except with God. God's the only way we'll make it. Worse than death. I feel like one of the messages that God was giving me is worse than death. Worse than death. And I felt like that was important. Then I had, right, like 2.5 weeks before I was attacked like that, and I did not know it was coming. I had this dream on August the 26th of 2020, before Trump had the stolen and all that. 34 moons. It was Trump and 34 moons, and I wrote it down.
Be thou my vision, O Lord of my heart, not be all else to me, save that thou art. Thou my best thought, by day or by night, waking or sleeping, thy presence my life. Be thou So